Welcome back to another deep dive here on the Book Summary Podcast. If you're a parent or ever plan to be one, communication with kids can be tricky.
Yeah.
So today we're taking a deep dive into how to talk so kids will listen and listen. So Kids Will Talk by Adele Faber and Elaine Mazlish.
Great book.
Buckle up because this book is packed with practical wisdom that can really change the way you connect with your kids. And if you find this deep dive helpful, hit that like button and subscribe for more insightful book summaries.
What I think is so fascinating about this book is it doesn't just preach theories. It's really rooted in the author's own real-life struggles as parents.
Yeah.
They start by acknowledging that even the most well-intentioned parent can feel completely overwhelmed by, just the intensity of their children's emotions.
Yeah, it's so refreshing, right? They share anecdotes about their own parenting fumbles.
Yeah.
And I think that makes their advice feel so much more relatable and achievable. It's not about being a perfect parent. It's about learning to navigate the messiness of family life with more empathy and understanding.
Exactly. And one of the book's core messages is the power of accepting children's feelings, even when those feelings are difficult for us to handle.
Right.
Think about it. How often do we react to a child's tantrum or meltdown by trying to shut down their emotions?
Oh, all the time.
Yeah.
You're fine, stop crying, or there's no reason to be so upset.
Right.
But the book really argues that those responses, while well-intentioned, actually make things worse.
They do. And think about it from the child's perspective.
Yeah.
They're experiencing these big, overwhelming emotions, and instead of feeling heard and understood, they're being told that their feelings are wrong or invalid.
Yeah, it's like we're unintentionally sending the message that they shouldn't trust their own emotions.
Precisely. And that can lead to all sorts of problems down the road.
Right.
The book suggests that instead of denying or dismissing a child's feelings, we try acknowledging them, naming them, and even granting wishes in fantasy.
So, for example, if a child is throwing a fit because you won't let them have a cookie before dinner, instead of saying, "Stop being ridiculous, you can have a cookie after dinner," you might say something like, "I see that you're really disappointed that you can't have a cookie right now. I get it, cookies are delicious. Wouldn't it be great if we could have cookies all the time?"
Yeah, you're acknowledging their disappointment,
Yeah,
validating their feelings, and even joining them in their fantasy for a moment.
right.
It might seem silly, but it can be incredibly effective in diffusing a tense situation.
It's like you're meeting them where they are emotionally instead of trying to force them to conform to your expectations.
And the book is full of these amazing parent anecdotes about how these simple shifts in communication can lead to calmer children and more peaceful interactions.
Totally.
There's one story about a mom who used this technique with her son who was terrified of dogs.
Oh, I think I remember that one. He was so scared that he wouldn't even leave the house.
Exactly. And instead of trying to reason with him or force him to confront his fear, his mom acknowledged his feelings and said, "Wouldn't it be great if we could train all the dogs in the world to be super friendly and just want to lick our faces?"
And amazingly, that simple act of joining him in his fantasy helped him to relax and eventually overcome his fear.
It's a great example of how accepting feelings doesn't mean condoning all behavior.
Right.
It's about creating a safe space for children to express their emotions so that they can learn to manage them effectively.
And the book emphasizes that this approach can be especially helpful when it comes to setting limits. When a child feels heard and understood, they're more likely to cooperate even when they don't get their way.
Absolutely. It's about building a relationship based on trust and mutual respect rather than power and control.
The book also talks about the power of nonverbal communication, which is something I think we often overlook as parents.
Absolutely. Sometimes a hug, a knowing look, or just sitting quietly with a child can be more comforting than any words we could say.
It's about being present with them in their emotions, rather than trying to fix them or make them go away.
And there's a really cool technique the book suggests called helping children deal with their feelings by drawing.
Yes. I remember trying this with my own kids when they were younger. It's amazing how drawing their anger or frustration or sadness helped them to calm down and process what they were feeling. Sometimes they didn't even need to talk about it afterward.
That's the beauty of it, right? It provides an outlet for those big emotions, especially for kids who might not have the words to express what they're feeling.
Right.
It taps into a different part of their brain and allows them to process those emotions nonverbally.
And this is just the beginning of what this book has to offer.
Yeah.
We'll be unpacking so much more in the next parts of this deep dive. If you're finding this helpful, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more amazing book summaries.
Stay tuned because we'll be exploring practical strategies for engaging cooperation, setting limits, and so much more.
Welcome back to our deep dive into how to talk, so kids will listen and listen. so kids will talk.
Hmm.
We're really getting into the heart of this book now, exploring those everyday parenting challenges that can sometimes feel like a battlefield. You know what I'm talking about, getting kids to cooperate.
It's the age-old struggle, isn't it? And the book offers such a refreshing perspective on this. It starts by asking us to think about all the do's and don'ts we throw at our kids every day.
Yeah.
Make your bed, brush your teeth, don't touch that, finish your homework.
Right.
It's exhausting.
It's like we're constantly bombarding them with commands and instructions. No wonder they tune us out.
Exactly. And the book suggests that those traditional methods of getting cooperation, like commands, warnings, lectures, they often backfire. They might work in the short term,
Right.
but they can create resentment and resistance in the long run.
It makes sense when you think about it.
Yeah.
Nobody likes being told what to do all the time.
Right. And kids especially need to feel a sense of autonomy and agency.
Yeah.
They need to feel like their opinions and preferences matter.
So how do we shift that dynamic? How do we encourage cooperation without resorting to those power struggles?
Well, the book introduces some really practical and surprisingly effective alternatives.
Okay.
One of my favorites is the idea of simply describing the problem.
Describe the problem.
Right.
So instead of saying, pick up your toys, you might say, I see a lot of toys scattered on the floor. It's hard to walk through here without tripping.
Exactly. You're simply stating the facts
Right.
without judgment or blame. It allows the child to see the situation from your perspective,
Right.
and hopefully motivates them to take action.
And the book also suggests expressing our feelings, which I think is so important. It's about modeling healthy communication for our kids.
Right. Instead of saying, you're making me so angry, you might
Yeah.
say, I'm feeling frustrated because I tripped over your toys.
Yeah.
It's a subtle shift, but it can make a big difference in how the child receives the message.
It takes the focus off of blaming the child and puts it on how their actions are impacting you.
And sometimes a little humor can go a long way.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
The book has some hilarious examples of parents using notes to engage cooperation.
The notes. Yes, I love those. There's one where a mom writes a note to her kids that says, attention all messy monsters. Your clothes are having a party in the laundry basket. Come join the fun.
It's so clever.
It's so fun.
It turns a chore into a game.
Right.
And takes the sting out of the request.
Mhm.
And the book points out that involving kids in creating these notes can be even more effective.
Oh, for sure.
It becomes a collaborative process rather than a top-down directive.
It's all about finding creative ways to engage their cooperation rather than demanding it.
Exactly. And speaking of creativity, the book also suggests giving children information as a way to encourage cooperation.
So, for example, if a child is refusing to wear their coat on a cold day, instead of saying, put your coat on, you'll catch a cold, you might say, when your body gets cold, it has to work extra hard to stay warm. That's why you might start shivering. Wearing a coat helps your body conserve energy and stay comfortable.
You're not just telling them what to do, you're explaining the why behind the request. It appeals to their sense of logic and helps them make informed decisions.
It also shows respect for their intelligence. We're not just treating them like little robots who need to be programmed.
Right.
We're engaging them in a conversation about why certain things are important.
And, sometimes even with the best communication strategies, kids are still going to push back and test limits.
That's the reality of parenting, right? It's not about having perfectly obedient children.
Right.
It's about helping them develop into independent critical thinkers who can make responsible choices.
And the book acknowledges that there will be times when traditional methods of discipline, like
Wow.
timeouts or consequences, might be necessary.
But it encourages us to think carefully about those methods and to use them sparingly. Punishment should never be about shaming or humiliating a child.
Right.
It should be about helping them understand the impact of their actions and learn from their mistakes.
And the book emphasizes that even when we're setting limits, we can still do it with respect and empathy. It's not about being permissive. It's about finding a balance between firmness and understanding.
So we've talked about accepting feelings, engaging cooperation, and setting limits. All of these principles are about creating a more harmonious and respectful relationship with our kids. But what happens when things go wrong? How do we deal with those inevitable conflicts and misbehaviors? That's where the book's discussion of alternatives to punishment really shines.
This is where it gets really interesting because, let's face it, punishment can be tempting when we're feeling frustrated or at our wits' end.
Yeah.
But the book challenges us to think about the long-term effects of punishment
Right.
and to consider whether it's truly effective in changing behavior.
I think a lot of us grew up with the belief that punishment is necessary to teach kids right from wrong.
Yeah.
But the book presents a compelling case for exploring alternative approaches, arguing that punishment often creates more problems than it solves.
It can lead to resentment, rebellion,
Totally.
and even a sense of shame or worthlessness. It can damage the parent-child relationship and make it harder to communicate effectively.
So what's the alternative? What can we do instead of punishing our kids?
The book proposes a radical idea of problem-solving together.
Interesting.
Instead of imposing consequences on a child, we involve them in finding solutions to the problems that arise.
It's a complete paradigm shift, right? Instead of being the judge and jury,
Yeah,
we become partners in finding a way forward.
exactly. And the book outlines a 5-step problem-solving process that's surprisingly simple and effective.
I'm all ears. This sounds like something I could really use in my own parenting toolbox.
Well, the first step is to talk about the child's feelings and needs.
Okay.
You really listen to their perspective even if you don't agree with it and
Amazing.
acknowledge their experience.
So it's about creating a space where the child feels heard and understood even when they've messed up.
You got it. Then you talk about your own feelings and needs,
Okay.
expressing your perspective in a way that's respectful and non-blaming.
It's about modeling healthy communication, showing them that it's okay to express our emotions,
Right.
but it's important to do it in a way that doesn't attack or blame the other person.
Exactly. Once both sides have been heard, you move on to brainstorming together to find a mutually agreeable solution.
Yeah.
This is where the creativity comes in. You encourage the child to come up with ideas,
Right.
and you contribute your own suggestions as well. The key is to write down all the ideas without evaluating them right away.
It's like creating a safe space for exploring different possibilities without judgment or criticism.
And once you have a list of ideas, you move on to discussing the pros and cons of each suggestion
Okay.
and decide together which solution you're going to try.
So it becomes a collaborative decision-making process where the child feels like an active participant rather than a passive recipient of consequences.
And that's a key difference between problem solving and punishment.
Right.
It's about empowering the child to take ownership of the situation and find a solution that works for everyone.
And I imagine this process can be really eye-opening for both the parent and the child. You might discover underlying reasons for the behavior that you weren't aware of before.
Absolutely. And the book shares so many inspiring anecdotes of how this problem-solving approach has helped parents resolve issues that previously seemed intractable, like the story of the child who was constantly fighting with their sibling.
Oh, I remember that one. It turned out the child was feeling neglected because their sibling was getting more attention. Once the parents understood the root of the problem, they were able to find solutions that addressed the child's underlying need for attention.
It's a great example of how problem-solving can help us get to the heart of the matter and find solutions that address the underlying causes of behavior.
And this approach isn't just about resolving conflicts, it's about teaching kids valuable life skills.
Exactly. They're learning how to communicate effectively,
Right.
how to negotiate, how to compromise, and how to find creative solutions to problems. These are skills that will serve them well in all areas of their lives.
And it's about building a stronger, more respectful relationship between parent and child.
It's about shifting the dynamic from one of power and control to one of collaboration and mutual respect.
It sounds like a much more peaceful and productive way to approach parenting. And I think it's important to acknowledge that this approach takes effort and commitment. It's not always easy to resist the urge to punish,
Right.
especially when we're feeling stressed or pressed for time.
You're absolutely right. But the book reminds us that parenting is a marathon, not a sprint. It's about making a conscious choice to invest in building a strong and healthy relationship with our children. And that investment will pay off in dividends down the road.
And you know, as much as we love unpacking these insights, we always encourage our listeners to dive into the book themselves. There's so much richness and depth that we can't possibly cover it all in a single deep dive.
Absolutely. How to Talk So Kids Will Listen is a treasure trove of wisdom and practical guidance. It's a book you'll want to keep on your shelf and refer back to again and again as you navigate the joys and challenges of parenting.
And if you're finding this deep dive helpful, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel.
Yes.
We've got a lot more to explore from How to Talk So Kids Will Listen. So stay tuned for the final part of our deep dive.
Welcome back to the final part of our depth dive into How to Talk So Kids Will Listen and Listen So Kids Will Talk. We've covered so much ground already, from accepting those big feelings to finding creative ways to engage cooperation and even rethinking our approach to discipline.
Yeah, and now we're moving into a really crucial aspect of parenting, encouraging autonomy. You know, it's about fostering independence, self-reliance, and that essential sense of, I can do it myself, that we all want our kids to have.
Right. Think back to your own childhood. You probably remembered those moments when you felt stifled or micromanaged, like your every move was being dictated. I know I do.
Oh,
It's a universal experience.
yeah.
And the book highlights how those experiences can leave us feeling powerless or resentful. It's not about rebelling against our parents. It's about that innate human desire to assert our independence and make our own choices. So how do we as parents strike that balance between providing guidance and support while also giving our kids the freedom to explore and learn on their own?
Well, the book outlines 6 specific skills for encouraging autonomy.
Okay.
Offering choices, showing respect for struggles, not asking too many questions, not rushing to answer questions, encouraging the use of outside resources, and not taking away hope.
Those are fantastic guidelines. It's all about empowering kids to think for themselves, problem solve, and develop that sense of, I can handle this.
You got it. And the book provides practical examples of how to apply these skills in everyday situations. For instance, instead of saying, wear your jacket, it's cold outside, you might say, it's chilly out today. You could choose to wear your jacket or your sweater.
It's such a simple but powerful shift. You're still ensuring they're dressed appropriately, but you're giving them a sense of control over their choices.
And it shows them that you trust their judgment. That's huge for building confidence and self-esteem. Another key skill is showing respect for their struggles. When they're tackling a new task, it's so tempting to jump in and rescue them. Oh, totally.
But the book reminds us that sometimes the best thing we can do is step back and let them grapple with it.
I remember this vivid example from the book about a little girl struggling to tie her shoelaces. And instead of swooping in to do it for her, the parent said something like, those shoelaces can be tricky. You're really concentrating hard on getting that knot just right.
It's about acknowledging their effort and encouraging them to persevere even when it's tough. It builds resilience and a growth mindset,
Right.
those qualities that will help them thrive in life.
And the book cautions against asking too many questions.
Right.
I know I'm guilty of this.
Me too.
It's so tempting to grill them about their day, their friends, every little detail.
It's natural to be curious, but as the book points out, too many questions can feel intrusive.
Yeah.
It can make kids feel like they're constantly being evaluated. It's about respecting their privacy and giving them space to share when they're ready.
And on a similar note, the book suggests we resist the urge to jump in with answers when kids ask questions. It's tempting to want to be the fountain of all knowledge, but sometimes it's better to let them figure things out on their own.
Exactly. Instead of handing them the answer on a silver platter, we can turn it back to them and say, that's a great question. What do you think?
Right.
It encourages critical thinking and problem-solving skills.
It also teaches them to be resourceful. We don't want them to become dependent on us for all the answers. We want them to know how to find information and learn from a variety of sources.
And that brings us to another important skill, encouraging the use of outside resources.
Right.
We can guide them to the library, the internet, or even suggest they ask a teacher or a trusted friend.
It expands their world and helps them build a network of support beyond just mom and dad.
And finally, the book stresses the importance of not taking away hope. Sometimes without even realizing it, we might say things that discourage our kids' dreams or make them feel like they're not capable of achieving their goals.
It's so important to be mindful of our language and to focus on their strengths and potential.
Instead of saying, you'll never be able to do that, we can say, that sounds like a challenging goal. But I believe in you. I know you can work hard and achieve anything you set your mind to.
It's about being their cheerleader, even when they doubt themselves. It's about fostering that belief in their own abilities.
And all of these skills for encouraging autonomy tie back to the book's central message about respecting children as individuals
Right.
with their own thoughts, feelings, and capabilities.
Speaking of respect and recognizing our kids' unique qualities, the book's discussion of praise really resonated with me. It challenges the way many of us were taught to praise our children.
Yeah, it's a thought-provoking section. The book argues that traditional praise, especially when it's vague or insincere, can actually be counterproductive.
Right.
It can create a dependence on external validation, a fear of failure, and even a sense of manipulation.
Think about how often we throw around phrases like, good job, or you're so smart, without really thinking about the message we're sending.
Yeah, it becomes empty and meaningless after a while. It doesn't provide any specific feedback or encouragement.
So what's the alternative? How can we praise our kids in a way that's truly supportive and empowering?
The book introduces the concept of descriptive praise.
Okay.
Instead of using generic labels, we focus on specific observations and actions. We describe what we see and how it makes us feel.
I love this example from the book. Instead of saying, you're such a good artist,
Yeah.
you might say, wow, I love the way you use all those different colors in your drawing. It makes me feel so happy to look at it.
Exactly. You're acknowledging their effort and creativity in a specific and meaningful way.
And descriptive praise is not just about accomplishments. It's about noticing and appreciating all the little things they do throughout the day,
Right.
their acts of kindness, their helpfulness, their perseverance.
It's about strengthening that parent-child connection through genuine appreciation and encouragement.
Now, before we wrap up this incredible deep dive, I want to touch on one final concept that I found particularly powerful, freeing children from playing roles.
This is such a fascinating idea. The book explores how the labels we attach to our children, even seemingly positive ones, can become self-fulfilling prophecies.
It's like we're putting them in these boxes and limiting their potential without even realizing it.
And the book offers a variety of strategies for helping our children break free from these limiting roles. We can look for opportunities to show them a new picture of themselves, to highlight their strengths and capabilities that they might not even be aware of.
We can put them in situations where they can challenge those labels and discover hidden talents.
We can let them overhear us saying positive things about them to boost their self-esteem and reinforce those qualities we see in them.
We can model the behavior we want to see in them, demonstrating through our own actions the values and qualities we want them to embrace.
And when they inevitably fall back into those old roles, we can gently guide them back to their true selves, reminding them of their strengths and encouraging them to try again.
It's all about creating a space where growth and change are always possible, where our kids feel empowered to explore their full potential without being limited by our perceptions of them.
It's a powerful reminder that we as parents have a huge influence on how our children see themselves and the world around them. And with the right tools and mindset, we can help them break free from those limiting beliefs and become the amazing individuals they were born to be.
This deep dive has been such an incredible journey through the wisdom of how to talk, so kids will listen, and listen, so kids will talk. If you're finding these insights helpful, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more amazing book summaries.
And remember, this is just a taste of what this book has to offer. We highly recommend diving into the book itself to explore these concepts in more depth and discover all the practical strategies and real-life examples that can transform your parenting journey.
And as we wrap up this episode, I want to leave you with a final thought. How can you apply these communication principles not just to your parenting, but in all your relationships? Can you listen with more empathy, speak with more respect, and find creative solutions together? It's something to ponder as you continue to explore the power of communication and connection in your own life. And don't forget to check out our other deep dives here on the Book Summary Podcast. We've got a whole library of insightful book summaries waiting for you. Thanks for listening.